Hi everyone, and welcome to another Educator Innovator webinar. It's October 7th, and today we'll be talking about the Hour of Code, an opportunity for educators all over the world to help young people learn how to code as part of Computer Science Education Week. I'm your host, Paul O, and I'm joining the webinar from the National Writing Project offices in Berkeley, California. Today our guests are Laura Kline, a digital prophet at Educator Innovator Partner Code.org. What a great title, I wish I had that. Laura Bradley, a middle school English and digital media teacher in Petaluma, California, and Kim Douillard, a multi-age teacher of first, second, and third grade students and the director of the San Diego Area Writing Project. Welcome, everyone. So I gave this brief introduction of all of you, but I would love for you to be able to introduce yourselves and add a little depth and nuance to my brief introduction. So let's start from my screen left, which may not actually be yours, so pay attention. Let's start with Kim.
Hi, Paul. As Paul said, I'm Kim Douillard, and I teach a multi-age class of first, second, and third graders in San Diego. And what's unique about that is that I actually keep my students for 3 years. So the students start in first grade and continue with me through third grade. And I actually co-teach the class, so there's another teacher in the room all the time, which is another great aspect of that. And then I'm also the director of the San Diego Area Writing Project, our local National Writing Project affiliate, I guess.
Great. And Kim, I have to say, I mispronounced your last name, which I cannot believe because I've known you for so many years. And
You just gave it the more French pronunciation. It's
right. Exactly. So I apologize for that. All right. Next up, Laura Bradley.
Hi, I'm Laura Bradley. I teach 8th grade English and digital media. A few years ago, I was only teaching English and had been using technology quite a bit with my students. And my principal said, hey, would you like to create a new class that gives kids exposure with all sorts of digital programs? And so coding was just a part of that class. So lots of different choices for my kids.
Fantastic. Can't wait to hear more about that. And last but not least, Laura Kline.
Yes. And unfortunately, my real job title is not digital prophet. That needs to be updated from a joke a coworker played on the About page a few weeks ago.
Got it.
I run marketing for Code.org, and part of that is the Hour of Code campaign. So I worked on it last year when it launched, and we've been working on it this year with a bigger goal to get to 100 million. And I'm excited to kind of tell people more about it today and hear testimonies and answer questions.
Fantastic. So, Laura Kline, I was wondering if we could start with you. Could you just help us understand better what the Hour of Code is?
Yeah. So the Hour of Code is a grassroots teacher-led movement that takes place December 8th through the 14th during Computer Science Education Week. It's basically a way to introduce computer science into schools, into students in a very friendly form. So instead of trying to take on a whole course or an intimidating course, you can start with 1 hour. And Code.org tutorials are designed to have a game-like feel, and interesting people are the teachers. And so it's really just a friendly way for teachers to get involved and bring computer science to their classroom.
Great. So I know that you have a presentation that you'd like to walk us through. So whenever you're ready, I can fire that up.
Yeah, I'm ready. You can go ahead and bring that up.
Great. So just give me 1 second.
Great. All right, so if we go to the first slide, where it says technology affecting every field. So you'll see here we have things from Google creating a contact lens to the Nest thermostat to Frozen the movie to the Uber app on your phone. And what we're trying to say here is that technology affects every field. We need our future doctors, lawyers, politicians, astronauts, all to be and understand the basics of computer science. You can go to the next slide. The easiest way to start teaching the basics is through the Hour of Code. So the Hour of Code was designed to demystify computer science for teachers everywhere and to get students to start learning. We launched this campaign last year during Computer Science Education Week, and 15 million students tried during that week. To date, we now actually have 44 million students who have tried an Hour of Code. This year, during that week, more girls participated in the Hour of Code and tried computer science than pretty much ever. Go to the next slide. What we were blown away is that week it reached 15 million users, and we compared that to groups like Tumblr and Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, and how long it took for their user networks to grow, and ours exceeded all of them. Go to the next slide. The most important thing about the Hour of Code is that these online tutorials are fun. They have a game-like feel and are teaching computational thinking and math concepts and science concepts hidden inside of games for kids. And so it's something that you can bring to your classroom to teach those other concepts and ensure your kids are having fun. You can go to the next slide. During that week, we had 40,000 teachers sign up and organize an Hour of Code. We sent them a survey at the end of the week, and 99% of them said they wanted to repeat it again this year. We love this testimony from Michael Clark. That I decided to try an Hour of Code today in my 8th grade science classes, and I have to say I've never, ever seen my students so engaged and excited about learning as I saw them today. Simply amazing. And so that was the vast majority of feedback we received from teachers who participated in the Hour of Code, that this was something that their students were loving and that they couldn't believe they hadn't done earlier, sooner in their classroom. Go to the next slide. So this year, the Hour of Code 2014, we're kicking off the campaign actually tomorrow with a big announcement, so look out for that. And we'll be updating tutorials and sharing those soon later this month, as well as announcing additional prizes, all building up to CSED Week, which is this December 8th through the 14th. Our goal is to reach 100 million students by the end of the year. So, we want every school and every student participating. If you did it last year with your classroom, do it this year, but get your whole school involved. We really want to make this bigger than the last. Go to the next slide. What we'll be announcing, besides the new tutorials that will be coming out, if you did it last year, don't worry, there'll be something new for your students to get them excited all over again. But we also will have amazing prizes for teachers in schools. So every Hour Code organizer will receive Dropbox Space or Skype credit as a thank you for bringing it to their students. One lucky school in every Space class we see will win $10,000 worth of technology. So that was by far the most fun part of the campaign last year, was watching our founders send out those emails to the winning teachers, and their reactions were just beyond disbelief. And so we're really excited to be able to offer that prize to teachers again this year. What we did also last year that was just another great thing for classrooms and schools was we had tech chats with special guests. So we had Jack Dorsey from Twitter, Bill Gates from Microsoft, Susan Wojcicki, who is now the CEO of YouTube, and Gabe Newell from Valve, a local gaming company here in Seattle. And we had 8 classrooms connect with each of those tech celebrities, and they were able to interview them and ask them questions. And even if you weren't one of the lucky classrooms picked to interview one of the tech celebrities, you could watch it live on Google Hangouts on air, or you could watch it later, the recorded version, on our YouTube page. And a lot of teachers use that as a way to engage their students in the week and around the excitement. We're really excited because last year we only had 4 celebrity guests available. This year we've already doubled that recruiting list, and we'll be announcing all those names in the next week. So that's just a brief rundown. What I'm going to do next is go ahead and just show everyone the Hour of Code website. And if everybody who's on the line mute their mic, because I'm going to actually play video, and I don't want the sound feedback to interfere. So if everybody who's here with me can mute their mic before I hit play. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So this is the Hour of Code website, and we'll kick off viewing this page with our latest video.
Hour of Code.
The Hour of Code? Yeah, programming a code.
The teacher says you guys are into it.
We are. It's very awesome.
Code.org has partnered with 30 public schools, including New York, Chicago, and Denver, to provide lessons in teacher training and writing.
The largest education events in history.
Organizers set what they called an ambitious goal, reaching 10 million students this week. Almost 15 million signed up.
This week, I'm proud to join the students, teachers, businesses, and nonprofit organizations taking new steps to support computer science in America's schools.
They've been so excited about it.
You're learning and you're playing.
I got it.
I ran an Hour of Code. Easy to do.
They're learning how things are created in a technological world, and that's their world and their upcoming world.
Every district should do, every district can do it.
I'm actually seeing the kids in elementary school start coding, and this is amazing.
If you can change technology, you can change the world.
We're excited that you are participating in today's Hour of Code.
I challenge girls in every single country to learn 1 hour of code.
Our job in life is to get this into schools and to give students. Please help us get the Hour of Code to 100 million.
An exclusive remix.
So that was the video, and we're loving it. So this is the Hour of Code website. You'll see for teachers, you'll want to go ahead and click Host It. And what that does is brings you to the organizer sign-up form to let us know you're hosting an Hour of Code. So it's a quick, simple form to fill out. And what's cool about it, if you sign up now, we're going to send you posters to your school and stickers as well. So you just click this box, send posters to my school, and enter your address, and we'll go and send you those things. You can also describe your event. We love to tweet about the different things happening around the country. And so you can also share some event details. The other thing we have this year is it's optional, but you can list your postal code or your full address. And what that happens is it goes on this map. And so this is actually a live interactive map. We can zoom in here. We'll see. We go into Washington, click on it. We can see Georgian Forest Elementary School is signed up, the Key School is signed up, Jack and Jill of America Inc. are signed up, Russell Elementary School signed up. So this is really cool, I think, for teachers and other organizers to actually be able to put their events on the map. And you'll see we've made a big push to make this more international. So we're really looking to grow the movement in other countries. The last thing I'll show you about this is our resource page. So if you need to share information with other teachers at your school or your administrator, go to this page, and we have a handout to help explain them what this is, or a how-to guide to let you know how to prepare and to execute the hour code. We have a few of our favorite inspirational videos that you can either use at a kickoff assembly that week or to get kids excited. And then we have these posters, and so right now, if you sign up, we'll mail you these posters for free for you to hang in your school, and they're really great. We have banners that you can download and feature on your website. And we also have sample emails if you need to spread the word to schools, friends, invite the media to attend your event, tell parents what you're doing, or invite a local politician to see if they'll come out and support your event. So yeah, this is the website, and I encourage everybody to go and sign up and you know, participate.
Great, thanks, Laura. I was really struck by a couple of things, and perhaps one because I was listening to a piece on public radio this morning, I think it was this morning, about the dearth of women in the technical fields in Silicon Valley. And so I think your graphic in terms of the number of girls who participate in our code seems really relevant. And I didn't know if you had any more that you wanted to share about that statistic.
Yeah, actually, so that statistic is phenomenal, and what we plan to do again this year is we give teachers a survey and organizers at the end and ask them how many girls participated in this. And the most exciting thing that we're going to have this year is, last year we had the Angry Birds and Plants vs. Zombies tutorials, which kids loved, and they were game-like feel. But in a few weeks, we'll be announcing a new partnership with another major organization that has very familiar characters for kids that they know of. And one of these are specifically will resonate so well with girls in the tutorial we built using this character is what I'm really excited about. I think that's probably going to really help with the number of girls to do it this year, is that we've built a very girl-specific tutorial using a character from a major character group out there that I can't say, and they'll love it.
Great. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, so first of all, that is incredibly exciting, and I think it just seems like such a wonderful result of the impact of what you were able to accomplish last year. The other thing that I want to talk about, and I think perhaps for some people it may be obvious, but I think this question of, why coding? And I'm struck by the fact that when young people code, they essentially are exhibiting agency. They are, I often think of the book by Douglas Rushkoff called Program or Be Programmed. This notion that we essentially, I think often think of ourselves as being in a culture of consumerism in which products are thrown at us. But this notion of being able to code I think gives young people the opportunity to be creators, to have agency in their interactions in the online world, of which we are also familiar, as well as just in their day-to-day lives. So I'm wondering if, and perhaps, I mean, I think you did allude to this, but if you could talk a little bit more about this notion of why coding and how that relates to this notion of youth agency.
Yeah. So that's a good question, and I think the most important thing that teachers can do by bringing computer science to their students is that, yeah, it teaches a skill that they can create things with, but it also teaches them a way of thinking, and it teaches them perseverance. So much of it is trial and error. And continuing until you get it right, and really embraces failing, trying again, failing, and trying again. But most of all, it teaches kids a different way of thinking that they can apply to other areas of their academic life. So the way and the skills they learn, and the computational skills they learn from learning computer science, they can translate that over into math classes, reading classes, writing classes, science classes, and I think that's important.
Great, thanks. And so speaking of that kind of transference, I think this might be a good opportunity to bring into the conversation some of our educators. And first off, I'd love to turn to you, Laura Bradley, I should say. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you embarked on this path of Hour of Code with your young people.
Sure. I teach a digital media class, and the kids are able to choose to work on whatever kind of project they want to do. And so I'm always keeping an eye out for projects that we can add to the curriculum. And I saw the What Most Schools Don't Teach video that was going around to promote Hour of Code, and thought that sounded like a great opportunity for my kids. And what makes it so perfect for us is that all of these tech companies have created these tutorials that are designed for certain age groups. They're designed to take about an hour. They even anticipated that schools block YouTube, and so they embedded the videos into their site so we didn't have to deal with the filters. So I said to my kids, we're going to try some coding, and I had some. I went through the tutorials myself and picked ones that I thought would be the most user-friendly, that didn't involve extra downloading, and I put them onto my website so that the kids only had to go to one place to find the tutorials. It was an easy sell to my digital media classes, but the English classes were not so sure why we were doing that. So I told them that coding was another language, and whenever you learn another language, it helps your native language skills. And so that's how we started.
That's fantastic, Laura. And I have to say, I love this notion of coding as another language, this idea of connecting the literacy of coding with literacy generally. And I'm just wondering, how did your English students take to that idea?
Well, not only the English kids, the digital media kids too were a little skeptical. I think that most people are intimidated by the thought of learning to write computer code, and I don't think most of my students had any experience or exposure with that. So I tried to set it up so that it would be fun for them. I told them I wanted them to sit with a partner, and I wanted them to each use their own laptop so that they could go through the tutorial themselves, but I also encouraged them to do the same tutorial as their partner so that they could work together. I have headphones in my class. The kids know to bring their own earbuds if they want, because we use tutorials. So they plugged them in and got to work, and off we went.
Fantastic. So what did you notice as your young people engaged in the Hour of Code?
Well, I saw behavior that I would associate more with gaming than I would with English class or digital media class. There was a lot of high-fiving when they would successfully put in some code and then watch it work. So they were cheering each other on. Kids were helping each other quite a bit, which I noticed in my digital media class. There's much more willingness to point things out to each other than I see when they're just writing an essay. They seem to gain confidence as they're working, and so they're happy to share their knowledge with their peers. I just have to laugh when kids ask me this. The links are on my website. The website's available to the kids. They know they access it at home to check for homework, and they would say things like, could I do more of this at home? Would that be okay? So they enjoyed it so much that they wanted to keep doing it. I surveyed them afterwards, and they said, yes, let's keep on doing this. They asked for a coding club, so I started a coding club last year for kids who wanted to come after school and keep working with it. And I think, well, I have two favorite moments. One was when a kid yelled out, it was a semicolon, it was the semicolon, that's why it wouldn't work. So the whole proofreading skill really comes into coding, and as an English teacher, I appreciate that. And then I was tweeting as they were working. So I was making these super short videos and pictures and tweeting them out and hashtagging Hour of Code. And Shakira favorited one of my tweets, and the kids just went bananas when I showed them that. They couldn't believe it. And then speaking of women coding, I showed the kids the videos that showed all of these successful women coders. And someone in the video said, girls should be learning to code. They can do that. And my kids are 13, and their response was, why did they say that? Of course girls can code. So they haven't yet gotten the message that there aren't enough women coding, and so this is a great age to show them that they can go into this field if they're interested. And then I have 3 boys who made their own business in my class during Hour of Code, and they spent the rest of the school year working on an app game that they plan to sell. They named their business. They would have business meetings in the middle of class when they would hash out the details of their game. So it was pretty exciting. Pretty exciting.
That's fantastic. I love all these learning pathways that emerge out of the Hour of Code work from last year. It's incredible. So
yeah. Just to quickly say like that, I mean, I'm blown away by what exactly 1 hour of code did in Laura's classroom, from girls not even knowing the misconceptions of, you know, the lack of women in the field, to being astonished by why they couldn't do it, to the boys creating their own business and being entrepreneurial. One of the things you said that I also think is so important is the attention to detail that writing code that requires, and it's almost like writing a paper. You write it, you proofread it, you fix it, and then you make it better. And that's kind of the same way like a program. You know, you write a program, it doesn't always completely work, you proofread it, make it better.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that for a moment, I am not a coder at all, but I do believe that, you know, there's terminology that I think is really applicable in coding, like, you know, what is the syntax of the code? So I think there are a lot of parallels there, as you were talking about, Laura, and that Laura Bradley and that Laura Klein pointed to again.
Right.
So I'm just wondering what's in store for this upcoming year, Laura. Are you going to be doing this again, and do you think other educators in your school will be interested in participating?
First, I have to admit that I have not even tried any of the tutorials myself. Hour of Code recommends that, and of course that's a good idea, but I just didn't have time. And I don't know how to code at all, and I told my kids that, and one of the best things I think about using technology is that there are ways for kids to find answers. And so that's been really powerful for the kids, that they're teaching themselves something that their teacher can't do. And that's how I'm going to present it to our staff. My principal asked me to present it at our November staff meeting, which will be before the December week of coding. And our school has had a bit of stress. We're piloting an LMS, and we are piloting one-to-one Chromebooks for 480 eighth graders. So it's been kind of a stressful start to the year, and I'm excited to tell the teachers that they don't have to do anything for this. Our kids have the Chromebooks, so they can just take them out. They can use my website to get to the links. The teachers don't need to know how to code. They can just let the kids run with it. And I would love to have the whole school do it. I don't know if the 7th graders will be able to, because the technology will be a little bit more difficult. And I know that there are tutorials where you don't need devices, but that involves getting all the 7th grade teachers on board, and that might be a little bit more work. But my goal is to have the whole school do it. I wanted to do that last year, and I said to the principal, I can't make all the teachers do this, so it's up to you, and there just wasn't time to pull that all together. But this year with the Chromebooks, it's much more doable. So we're very excited about it.
Fantastic, and I love the notion of the young people in your school being able to take leadership around this work, that they're the ones who have the knowledge and the skills to pursue what they're interested in related to coding, and that the teachers can be there to help facilitate their learning, but don't need to be the experts in that situation.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, so I think what I'd love to do now is to get Kim Douillard. See, now I'm messing up the whole last name, please, Kim. Oh, and I think it looks like Kim dropped off for some reason.
Uh-oh.
So I think maybe while we're waiting for Kim to come back on, I'm wondering if Laura Kline, if you had any other thoughts in relation to what Laura Bradley described. Is what she's describing typical, would you say, in the experiences that teachers have, or were there any elements of this that stood out to you beyond what you described already?
I think that the time constraints of last year that teachers experienced about trying to get your whole school on board was very common. Code.org is a super new organization, and this was kind of our first big thing we did after the What Most Schools Don't Teach video. And so as a staff, we were scrambling to get everything ready. And so I can only imagine as a teacher getting the stuff in your hands last minute and trying to get a whole school on board how difficult it is. And so we're hoping with the website already up and running and teachers being able to see last year's tutorials, it will be a lot easier to get more people on board this year.
Great, thanks, Laura, and yay, Kim.
You know what I did, Paul, right? I instead of unmuting, I hung up.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was because I fumbled your last name again.
No.
I've had it. I'm done. So Kim, this is great. I'm glad that you're back, because what I would love to hear, and I think what our audience would love to hear, is so what does code, what does code.org, what does the hour of code look like in an early childhood and early elementary classroom?
Yeah, so we really took a different approach to the hour of code than the sort of hour of code as presented by the website. So to me, the hour of code was an opportunity to do something we'd already been talking about. So at our writing project site, we've been talking a lot about and thinking a lot about the importance of students as producers of information and of things, rather than just passive consumers of what other people make and produce. And so, coding was really a part of that, because they're so interested in video games and devices that we've really been thinking about, like, how can we get students kind of in the back end of digital technology so that they would understand what's going on. And kind of unlike Laura's students, my students actually weren't all that skeptical. Maybe because of their age, they figured if I said we were going to code, they would be able to figure out how to code. Little did they know, like Laura, I also am not a coder. I don't actually have very much experience, but figured we could learn along with the students. We actually tried to do this a couple of years ago, before Hour of Code, and then we were going to use Scratch and get our students started, and then realized that our sort of antique Mac lab couldn't get the programs to run, and then we had so little time that they couldn't really get going on it. So last year we had one-to-one iPads, so we thought, here's our chance to really try something. Again, we wanted to try Scratch, but guess what? Scratch doesn't work on an iPad. So we had to figure something else out. So we found hopscotch, and we actually we actually started not with a digital tool. We started with this little robot called Bebot, who moves up and down and can turn on this grid. So he's actually a physical little tool that students could program by pushing a button. And it's similar to the way Scratch and Hopscotch work, where you actually tell the device what it needs to do. And then we worked on Hopscotch. And we, in my district, we're lucky enough to have an ed tech person. And he came in and he taught the kids how to make a square using Hopscotch. And after that, we sort of set them loose and let them mess around a little. And then for the Hour of Code, our project was we actually gave our kids a design challenge and asked them to make a winter scene using Hopscotch. And I did end up writing a blog post on it, so it's out there in the world. It's actually called Hour of Code. But the students were really successful, and it's like anything. Not all students love it equally, and what we were excited about, there wasn't a gender preference. We actually had as many girls programming as boys in our class, and I think Laura talked about this. The kids were really helping each other and supporting each other. And my students, they didn't ask for a club because they don't know that they can have a club, but they did come in before school, and instead of going out on the playground to play, they would come inside and work on their Hopscotch programs. And they started to become great hackers. So they would go to existing projects in Hopscotch, read the code, and then take those pieces of code back into their own projects to make whatever it is that they were trying to find. So they had to figure out where in the code the character was doing whatever it was that they wanted their character to do. Many of my students figured out that Hopscotch is a free app. They talked their parents into it, so they're using Hopscotch at home to code. There are a lot of exciting things happening with that. We've already started coding this year, so we're not seeing only the December time frame as the opportunity for programming. We're actually starting with Scratch Junior this year. To try it out and to see what it offers the students. And we suspect we'll be back on Hopscotch at some point, and we keep hoping that Scratch will be iPad friendly at some point. But one of the things we want to do this year is actually have our kids design and make their own games. So one of our focuses has been on this design process, this idea of planning, making, getting feedback, iterating, trying again. And one of the things that Ed Tech Guy told the kids right off is that if they didn't know how to do that yet, they probably hadn't failed enough. So this idea that it's failure that teaches you the next step, that failure is not failure. Failure is simply one step in the process to getting to where you're at.
I feel like you've said so many amazing things, Kim, and I would turn also to Laura Bradley and Laura Klein to respond, but a couple of things that I just wanted to point out and I suppose see if there is more that you would like to add. First of all, I think this notion that coding is something that potentially you could teach year-round. I mean, I'm sure that's music to Laura Klein's ears. But I think that's really an important point that you're making, and I just wanted to emphasize that. I think as well, to me, it's fascinating to think about your young people really taking up this interest to the point where they are pursuing it outside of school. They're coming in early. I think it just speaks to the power of leveraging the kinds of tools that I think you're putting in front of the kids in ways that I think would be described as, constructivist, essentially. You're giving them opportunities, again, to go back to this consumer versus creator kind of paradigm. You're giving them opportunities to create with these tools, to actually build through coding, which I think is fantastic. And I realize I'm talking at you and not formulating a question here, but I feel like you had so many rich ideas. The last thing that I was going to say is, and these are going to be a couple of plugs actually. One is, I think, in having your kids create video games, it seems to me that you're taking this hour of code, and another piece that I think has been alluded to but not stated explicitly is that coding potentially has the pathway to help kids understand systems. So it's essentially a pathway into systems thinking, and particularly if they're developing games, digital games. The development of those games really involves the ability to understand the components of a system and the way in which systems operate. So I think that's amazing that that's happening at the first and second and third grade levels. And I would say the plug is we actually are in the process of publishing a book series that is about systems thinking, and there is a blog post coming. It's work that a number of National Writing Project teachers have done with Kylie Pepler at Indiana University. And it looks at essentially systems thinking through, in one case, the development of video games using GameStar Mechanic, through digital storytelling creation using Scratch, and through the development of e-textiles. And then the other plug is, though it sounds like you ran some challenges with Scratch, we actually have the folks from Scratch on our next webinar, which the date escapes me at the moment. I believe it's October 22nd or October 23rd. They'll be talking about a curriculum series that they're, not a series, but a new curriculum guide that they have published related to Scratch called Creative Computing, and I think I have it on my desk here somewhere, so if I can find it, I'll hold it up. Oh yes, here it is. So Creative Computing, and that's the next webinar coming up. But I wanted to then get back to an actual question. So I feel like I'm one of those lawyers on the show who the judge says, "And what's your question?" So I'm just wondering, how open was your school environment to you teaching coding? And when I say school environment, I mean other colleagues, the parent and guardian community. Did they understand what you were doing in terms of, or did they understand the rationale for why you would introduce coding to young people?
So I think, Paul, that I've been thinking a lot about systems thinking. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of the reasons why we've pushed forward into things like programming, is this idea of complicating how things work in the world instead of the sort of direct binaries that we're so often presented with, right or wrong, or this or that. Instead, it's much more complicated than that, and there's a lot more pieces and ifs and thens to work through, which I think coding does a really good job of working through that and asks kids to push past just the easy answers. One of the advantages excuse me, of my class is that having families with us for 3 years means they also get 3 years to build a relationship with us and trust us in ways that sometimes you don't get in the 1 year classroom situation, especially early in the fall. I don't know that teacher, what are they doing? We have this track record with families, so they're more willing to go along with these things that we try out. And then when things like Hour of Code come up, it provides that sort of backing that really helps. Well, internationally, everybody is going to be coding and has this push towards coding. So this is a good idea. And we're lucky enough here in San Diego, we actually have ThoughtStem, which is an organization that promotes coding for youngsters as well, on the UCSD campus, which is actually where our writing project is. So there's been some interaction there too, and so when parents hear, oh, at UCSD, they're doing these things for coding for children, and in my child's classroom, they're getting these opportunities for coding, it just creates this energy and synergy around this opportunity that students have instead of seeing it as something scary or negative. And parents, we've invited parents to learn along with their children, let their children teach them about programming, which is another kind of exciting shift, is that the kids have the agency and the skills and the tools, and they are the ones that are showing. And that happens in the classroom too. I can show them something, but they can show me something else too. And we're continuing to learn together. Some of my kids are really good at it. Some of my kids are not so good at it. And I fit somewhere in there in the continuum too. And I'm still learning. And because these are apps, like Hopscotch changes and updates their app, like, I don't know, every other week or something. And so just when you think you've learned something, they change it and you have to figure it out all over again. And the kids keep figuring that out too. So there's just so much possibility, I think, with that. It's just, finding spaces so that the kids have time and opportunity to work through what it takes to program.
Fantastic. And I'm wondering if either of the Lauras have any responses?
As far as getting people on board, I'm fortunate to be at a school that really embraces innovation. In fact, our principal has asked us to take 20% innovation time.
Nice.
I think we grade our papers instead. But and so lots of teachers on my campus are doing very innovative things. And so she said, absolutely, let's do Hour of Code. It sounds great. And when I contacted the parents to let them know, they were pretty excited about it. I think Hour of Code did a great job with the publicity. Those videos that were going around, a lot of people had already seen them and were aware of it, and so they were pretty excited about it.
One thing I wanted to let Kim know, and then to let the audience know, is recently Code.org came out with a K-5 specific curriculum, and it's 3 courses, a course 1, 2, and 3, and actually at the end of each course, the kids are building a game or an app that they can actually send and share with people. And I was just going to screen share super quick. Our screen, just share this. When you go to studio.code.org, you'll see we have our Hour of Code, but then you see these courses for elementary school students, and they're designed for kids who are just learning how to read, and they're much more friendly. But we also have this Fun for Everyone, PlayLab, Flappy Code, and Artist, which are just creating games and stories. So it's not a course that builds upon concepts, but just kind of a sandbox of games. And then the last thing we have on this page is just the general 20-hour intro course that we came out with last year. So this was just another resource I wanted to share real quick, and it's at studio.code.org.
Great, thanks. I want to ask a question of you, Laura, and this goes back to Laura Kline, I should say, and actually anyone can chime in. We talked a little bit about the number of girls who are engaging in coding as a result of the Hour of Code, and I think in general, I think no one would dispute the fact that there are equity issues when it comes to the makeup of Silicon Valley, who is coding in Silicon Valley. And I'm wondering if you can speak at all to this notion of equity and, and the desire perhaps to, say, alter those dynamics amongst those who are seen as coders through Hour of Code.
Yeah, that's one of Code.org's biggest mission, is to grow the number of women, but to grow not just the number of women, but all underrepresented groups in the field. For so long, the stereotype is of, thinking of a boy sitting in a basement drinking Mountain Dew, coding alone, and that's just not what it is. It's something that you can create, and that you can create programs that can change the world, which is things that women really love, to think about in the bigger picture. But one of the things we do specifically at our organization to help grow that number is all of our tutorials have self-guided videos. And yes, while we've used Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, we've also used Chris Bosch and Susan Wojcicki, and then even just not big tech, not celebrity names like an African American doctor or a Hispanic woman who actually does this beautiful dance using digital media, and they're all explaining different concepts that are taught in computer science throughout our courses. So as kids are sitting down and doing our courses, they're not just seeing, they're identifying with the people that are teaching them, and they're hopefully feeling this is something more for them and not something for somebody else.
Yeah, it reminds me of a session that I attended at the Digital Media and Learning Conference last year, in which a teacher at the Quest to Learn school in Chicago, which is a games-based school, talked about the fact that some of his students, African American young people, because they had no images that represented the possibilities of themselves as coders, they immediately assumed that they weren't. So it seems to me like simply having that representation in and of itself, would prove vital to young people, to give them that sense of possibility.
I think it's another reason for bringing coding into elementary schools is this idea that it's not for certain specific groups of people, it's for learners, right? And all of us are learners, and so before they get the stereotypes placed on them, let's get them, get their hands on it and let them try it out.
Great. So we are getting close to the hour, which is very sad for me because I have loved this conversation, and I'm even more excited, if that's possible, for December and the Hour of Code. But before we go, I wanted to give each of you a chance to make any final comments if you'd like. So let's actually start with you, Laura Bradley. Is there anything that you would like to say in response to the overall conversation, or what you're looking forward to, hoping for with regard to Hour of Code? Any thoughts at all? Final thoughts?
Something that has made this so valuable for me is that the professionals in the world of coding provided these tutorials for us. And I don't know if Hour of Code was surprised by this, but because it was provided for us and it was done in a very professional way, we were able to just get on board and bring it to our kids. And as I said, I'm not a coder, and I told my kids when they complain that because I can't help them, I say if we had to wait till we had a coding teacher, we would not have coding at school. So huge thanks to Hour of Code for doing that, and I feel like it's opening a door to a way to really improve what teachers are able to do when we have professionals creating this kind of curriculum that's so accessible for us and our kids.
Great, thanks, Laura. And how about you, Kim? Final word?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how when an organization like yours, Laura, puts these materials out there, it makes it much easier for us to encourage our colleagues and to spread the word. And I know within our writing project, we're spreading the word from teacher to teacher to teacher all over San Diego County. And then because it's so easy to use on Twitter, to use on Facebook, to just to use our our learning communities to keep spreading it, it does spread. And if it feels like if someone like me who is not a professional coder can help my students learn to program, then the next person down the across the county says, oh, I could try that too. So I think it's this continual push and pull that makes it easy to do. So the organization and the hashtag, it all to me makes it easier to spread the word and help get people to stick that toe in the water and try this out.
Great, thanks, Kim. And Laura, Klein.
Yeah, there's nothing I love to do more than to connect with teachers using our stuff or who've done the Hour of Code and hear about the impact it's had on them and their classroom. As a former teacher, I know how valuable good teaching resources that are turnkey that your kids love can do to change your classroom. So I constantly tell our education team and our developers the stuff that they're building and that they're making are having way more of an impact than we actually feel here in our small office in Seattle. So it's so great to be able to connect and hear these stories. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to more people doing it this year and growing the movement.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. And we look forward to the announcement tomorrow, you said, right? So,
yeah.
So we'll keep our eyes open for that. And in the meantime, I just wanted to thank each one of you for being a guest and being so articulate about your work and about the Hour of Code. And so in closing, I would just say to the audience that if you're interested in learning more about connected learning, which undergirds all of our work here at Educator Innovator, including our partnership with code.org, make sure to check out the Connected Learning Alliance site at clalliance.org, where there are amazing testimonials from practitioners around the country and around the world. And if you'd like to keep abreast of future opportunities like this amazing webinar, other opportunities from Educator Innovator and partners like code.org, please sign up for the monthly newsletter at educatorinnovator.org at the bottom of the homepage, and follow Educator Innovator on Twitter at innovates_ed. Thanks again, everyone, and good night.
Good night. Thanks, Paul.